Hello, everybody. So, I'm going to ask for everybody to bear with me during this video. This is my first ever live. So, what I want to talk about is the prison conditions here in Texas. Now, I know that for many people, that's not a concern, especially if you don't have loved ones that are incarcerated. But there are certain things, and I do want to make mention that I'm a firm believer that, if you make a choice in life, that there are consequences for those choices. But I also believe that people should not be subjected to certain conditions while they are incarcerated, which brings me to an area known as ALU, or alternate living unit, or administrative lockup. If you were to call the unit, they would call this area administrative lockup. The difference with this area, it is a form of restrictive housing. However, it's so small. It's basically a broom closet, and so they only have 12 cells in this area. So it's seg within a seg, if that makes sense. So you have general population, and then you have seg, and then you have ALU. Now, the one thing that's troubling, one of the things that are troubling about ALU is that the prison only has 12 cells. So what is it about these 12 people, if it's even fully staffed? What is it about these 12 people that determines whether they go back there? Now, I've done the research. And when I say I've done the research, I've done the research. So it's 25 pages worth of research here. And what I found is that there's no difference in the offenses that are committed by these individuals that determines why they're are housed in this particular area. And what I mean by that is that, let's say, you have two offenders that are in general population, and they both get into a fight or something like that. Not together, they don't fight each other, but they get into an altercation. So what would happen in this instance, from what I found, is that one of them may go to SEG, and then the other may go into ALU. But they both got into a fight, not with each other, but they both got into a fight. So there's no difference. So what is the determining factor at that point that one person goes to administrative lockup and then the other person just goes into regular SEG? So there are very distinct differences there between the two. For one, when you're in regular SEG, you come up for review. They have to write your case, and they usually have about 14 days to do so. Now, they can apply to have, and by they, I mean the administration, they can ask for an extension, which would bring it to about 20 days. That is not something that you see in ALU. Once an individual is in ALU, there's no determining like when they'll be out. There's no review process. There's nothing that would indicate when they would be removed from this area. So you have two people that have the same offenses, yet only one of them may come up for review. One of them gets the due process, and then the one that's in ALU gets nothing. So the more of the distinct differences between them is that, for one, there's multiple individuals who are in ALU that have been back there for years, without any sort of review. One in particular that's very, very troubling to me is an individual who has been back in ALU. So no phone calls with family, no visits, just absolutely nothing, just in a small cell. And that's it. No outside recreation, no nothing for 18 years. 18, 1 8. That is a very, very long time to be in a segregated housing area where you just don't have any sort of communication with anyone. So, and another troubling fact about it is that if none of the individuals that are housed in this area I could find are LWOPs or have sentences of life without parole. So these individuals will somehow, come up for parole. Um, and when you think about it, it is very troubling because they're not LWOPs. So that means that at some point they will, reintegrate back into society. So what that suggests is that if a person is not mentally disturbed when they go into restrictive housing or segregation or anything like that, they will be by the time they get out, especially 18 years. You have no idea how to communicate with people. You have no people skills, but yet you'll be released back into society. So you think about all of the damage that is done to an individual that is segregated from just normal conversation. It's not a good thing. It's not good, because the question then becomes, who are we going to be releasing back out into um, society? Who has this person now become? And then that means that you have to look at the mental status of someone who has been subjected to those kind of conditions for such a long period of time. I mean, to say the least, I would be sort of, on edge for, with things like that. They're offered no programs, mind you, programs that are necessary to build, to help develop the skills that they would need to reintegrate back into society, and not only develop, but to build on it. Those things are needed. And because those programs are not offered to the individuals in, ALU, but they are offered to individuals in other restrictive housing, but yet the offenses are no different. So it almost makes it seem more personal from administration when you have a handful of individuals that find themselves in this area. In looking into ALU, I don't see that there's anything outlining the particulars of what could put somebody in this housing area. So if you don't have anything that outlines what puts somebody in this area, then it makes sense that you won't have anything that determines how they get out. So all of these individuals who are housed back there have had no disciplinary infractions for years, and it means nothing. They're still housed in this area. Now, I've heard that it's for individuals who may have either escaped or attempted escape. But in my research, I have determined that many of the individuals in this area have never attempted escape whatsoever. So then it goes back to, is this a personal vendetta? those kind of things can't go on. If that is in fact the case, they cannot continue, you know, because it brings us to a couple months ago, we had an individual who had it was in the middle of transport, and he somehow got control of the bus, and he got the driver off the bus. They got into an altercation. The officer that was in the back, I mean, needless to say, did absolutely nothing. And so this offender gets back on the bus, drives off. He has other inmates on the bus as well, drives off, and then comes to a stop in like a field. And I believe they say that the one of the officers shot the tires or something, so it caused him to get to a stop in a field. So he gets off the bus and takes off, and he's on the run for like a week. And he had already this offender had already attempted escape. So if ALU is specifically designed for this type of incident, then why wasn't this individual housed there? And that's a very good question, because by the time the law had caught up to this individual, he had murdered 5 people in that week's time that he was on the run. 5 people. So the area, if it is meant for this, for people who have either escaped or attempted escape, and he was not put back there, then there's something else going on. It seems to be more personal. So if he had in fact been put in this area, if in fact the housing area that was designed to prevent these sort of things from happening again, then 5 people would still be alive today, to include young people whose lives were cut short. You know, that's a very hard pill to swallow for the law. You know, it's everything here in Texas is so, law and order. But you don't do what you're supposed to do. And when that happens, when you don't do what you're supposed to do, people lose their lives. So what I'm saying is that this area, if it is not designed, if they don't not have policy for it, then you either need to get a policy for it that governs this area, or close it immediately. Because really there's no reason for any of these individuals to be housed in this area. There's no reason for them to be housed in this area. So moving on into part of the research, there's so the men again are not given any due process through the state classification committee review process. Now, it had been years since this happened, and through efforts of, my own and a few other people, all of a sudden now administration goes back there to visit, because, senators are being contacted now. So now they have to answer. So it shouldn't be that way. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be where somebody has to basically tell on you. I'm gonna call it like it is. It should not be where somebody have to actually tell on you for you to do your job, Because when you don't do your job, people lose their lives. And that is something that is going to stick with them, that these people lost their lives because this young man should have been housed in this area for people who have escaped or attempted escape. And he was not. And for whatever reason, I can't answer that. I don't know. All I know is that he should have been there. He wasn't. He escaped. And 5 people are dead because of that. And so there is, let me see, so I'm going to quote Jeffrey Raymond. And in his book that's entitled A Radical Perspective on Crime, his observations were towards what plagues the institutions that we know as penal. So mostly towards those that oversee them. And this is what he said, and I quote, to look only at individual responsibility is to look away from social responsibility. To look only at individual criminality is to close one's eyes to social injustices and to close one's ears to the questions of whether our social institutions have exploited or violated the individual. Criminal justice focuses on the first and looks away from the second. Thus, by focusing on individual responsibility for crime, the criminal justice system literally acquits the existing social order of any charge of injustice. So, this basically sums up what the men in ALU are undergoing. Now, I have no doubt that these men have been thoroughly punished, but have been denied any further due process. So no policy, no program or progress is good enough for them. So it doesn't matter if they stay out of trouble. So, it's basically, this research has basically uncovered a group of men that live in a Guantanamo Bay type area. So all the reforms that achieved for administration segregation have been excluded to these men, and in most cases not even for what they did to be placed in ALU, but because they have been placed there by someone that may have wanted to prove a point. So it Supreme Court Justice Brennan expressed that prisoners are persons whom most of us would rather not think about. Banished from everyday sight, they exist in a shadow world that only dimly enters awareness. They are members of a total institution that controls their daily existence in a way that few of us can change. So it these things really need to be looked at. It's the way that things are run now is like justice is a two-way street and criminal justice is a one-way street. So looking, let me go through here and see. Okay. There was a few other things that I wanted to point out here. So there is like a sensory deprivation. They say too much sun is not a good thing, but the sun provides vitamin D. So you need some sort of sun, and these individuals do not have that. It's a sensory deprivation. you know those things, everybody else can go outside, and they have an outside area that's specifically for the individuals in ALU. So why is it not being used? Why is it that everyone else can go outside? And it's not as if they have one house, one rec area that's just for general population, which would then explain why the individuals in ALU can't use it, because you're restricted. You're in a restrictive housing, so therefore you can't mingle with those in general population. But if there is a rec area specifically designed for the individuals in ALU, why are they not able to use it? A couple other things is, so there's a 7-day move. It's very senseless in my opinion. Once a week, the individuals back in ALU are required to pack up all of their belongings, get shackled, and then they move to another cell in the same area. So it's like playing musical chairs. And so when you look at that, it's senseless to have individuals being moved like that. And so let me look further here. Hold on just a second. Okay. So I'm going through all of these documents. Oh, so sorry. It's my nephew. So I'm going through these documents here, and I know that I mentioned there's no way for these individuals to get out of ALU. However, in the research that I've conducted, I have a full list of names and offenses and how, what happened to those that were removed from the area. Now, at some point, a past warden at this unit, at the Cofield unit, attempted to get this area closed down. And because of that, many of the offenders who were back there at that time were all moved. However, the area was not closed down. This is not the warden, this is not the current warden. Now, when we look at that, we also see that some offenders who were removed from this area have either attacked another offender, a staff member, or they've done something to themselves. So what it does is it unintentionally incentivizes reckless behavior like that. So it tells the individuals who are back there now, who are housed in this area now, that they need to assault someone in order to be removed from this area. Now, the only thing with that is, yes, I'm out of this area, but now I possibly have another charge that I have to face. And most of the time, you won't see this individual being charged with anything, especially if it's directed towards another offender. Now, if they have done something to a staff member, that's different. So you're more likely to be given more time for those offenses. But they are back in general population, and they have, they can go outside, they can use the phone, visitation, all of those things. These are the things that people need. You need human contact. It's a vital necessity. Now, most penal institutions, they always talk about finding ways to encourage, positive change and promote, positive behavior in the offenders. But the way that things are being ran now, it does not promote that. It promotes depression. It promotes the possibility for someone to go insane, to have a mental breakdown. And it's, TDCJ is so caught up on just punish, 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 just rule with the iron fist. But your own mission is a complete contradiction of the way that you run things. And they don't see that. They don't see that. So before ending here, because I don't want to make this video entirely long, so I want to talk about the visitation. So in 2009, and before, the visitation was Saturdays and Sundays, which is optimal for people who work but still want to be supportive of their loved ones. And that was 8 to 5. Now, 2009 and after, the days changed to, they added Friday. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but only one ALU offender could go to the visiting room on a designated date. And then 2019, the rules changed again, changing the visitation days to Thursday and Friday, again with one offender on any given day rule. Now, Thursday and Friday, those are all working days. So then COVID-19 came, and then the visitation was shut down. Now, when the visits opened back up, the visits were changed to Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1 to 5. So they completely did a 180 or 360, however you want to look at it. It completely flipped the script. So not only are you cutting down the hours, the window of time that somebody can visit, now you're changing it to, working days. So it's basically making it it's a deterrent. It's a deterrent. Okay. So there's no weekend time offered for family members anymore for those families who have, loved ones in ALU. So those things are not taken into consideration. These people have jobs as well. So all of the visitation schedules seem to change due to feelings, opinions, and biases that somebody may have. There's no integrity in these policies that change every few years due to some sort of personal agenda. So for instance, let's put it in perspective. So Tuesdays and Thursdays are the visitation days now, 1 to 5. So 2 offenders could go on any given day, but the time slot must be reserved ahead of time. So 1 to 3 or 3 to 5. And if a third family member tried to reserve a visit for that day, they will be denied, though they could reserve for the next available Thursday or Tuesday. And again, they could still be denied, because you can have one family member who calls and reserve and say, hey, give me the next 2 months worth of Tuesdays. That's it. So it's a battle of, trying to get there to see your loved one. It should not be that way. And they don't deny your visit. If you reserve your visit ahead of time, they won't tell you, no, you can't do this because you've already come. You can visit every week, once a week. So that's the thing. And a lot of people can't go during the week because they work. They have to make a living. And so when that comes into play, then these individuals are not able to get what they need. They're not able to get that love and that compassion from their families. They're deserving of those things as well, regardless of what someone has done. And one of the things that disturbs me about Texas is that, most people in the state act as if they're just so Christian, but God is love. I don't really, I don't particularly care for people to, do things negatively in the name of God. Like God is not, he's love, he's compassion, he's forgiveness. That's what he stands for. And he will judge everyone individually on the things that they've done. He will judge everyone individually on the things that they've done. It's not for, mankind to be the judge, jury, and executioner. That's because you will one day stand before the greatest judge of all. And so I'm a firm believer of that. Now, there are other things, like I said, this is 25 pages. I'm not going to go through everything. I do have, however, an event. I don't know if I can put it up here. I don't know if I can even share screen. So what I would do is, let me see. What I would do is try to put this in the chat here. So there's going to be a webinar that's going to be hosted on September 21st, 7 p.m. Central Time, where people are able to ask their questions. I'm going to learn a little bit more, or a lot more, about ALU. There's also a petition that is circulating. If you'd like to read up on, the violations going on in ALU, please take a look at the petition on change.org/ALU awareness. So again, that is www.change.org/ALU AWARENESS. And please, we love to have your support. Please share with your family, your friends, your, social media followers, strangers. A lot of times, people can't support what they don't know about. They can't help change what they don't know about. So I wanted to make this video just to give the world a sense of what's going on. Now, I've gone and spoken before the Texas Board of Criminal Justice. Just recently, August 26th, I am, doing my part in trying to promote change. If you want people to change, you have to incentivize change. You have to make them want to change. And I mean, that is it's just no other way. It's just no other way. And when people are doing, what they need to do to change and do better, encourage that, reward that, and let people know, that you see them, that, hey, I noticed that, you haven't been doing this lately, and that's very positive. I'm happy for you. Continue to do it. People like to be encouraged that way. People like to know that the good that they're doing is being seen. And I think that's very important, especially in, for those who are incarcerated, because many people end up in there, the circumstances are very different for everybody. It's not always good to assume that everybody that is incarcerated is guilty, because the past has shown us that many people have been, incarcerated for years, have died in prison, or have been released after serving, most of their life, and they get out elderly, and then the state has to compensate them for like wrongful conviction. So it's not always a good thing to assume that people that are incarcerated are necessarily guilty, because Texas is known for executing innocent people, and then they learn that the person is innocent after the fact. But it's nothing that you can do at that point. This person's life is already gone. So you can't get it back, and all of the apologies in the world is not going to bring them back. It's not going to undo the damage that was done. So I want to do my best to ensure that, regardless of what is going on, that people are treated with human kindness. People are treated the way that they're supposed to be treated. And and I'm gonna end on this note. If, for those of you that are believers, if we were, the worst thing that we've ever done, just think about if God treated us the way that we treat people, where would we be? If he was not willing to forgive our mistakes, where would we be? So I'm not asking for everybody to just, be the way that I am. I'm asking for openness. I'm asking for compassion. At least be open to hearing another perspective. Everybody is not guilty. And when people are judged by a jury of their peers, what does that really even mean? What does that really even mean? Because they listen to whoever makes the best argument, and that's who wins. there are many, many people. I work very closely with, lawyers and state representatives and senators and other activists. And people are in fact incarcerated that are innocent, that have never harmed anyone, but because they don't have the money to get a lawyer worth their salt, they find themselves behind bars. So I want to be the person that I want someone to be for me if I was in that situation. That's what I want. So I definitely enjoy you guys watching this stream. Like I said, this was my very first live stream, so you know, I hope that I'm not judged too harshly here. Um, and I look forward to, doing another live. Again, I don't, because this is my first one, I don't know if I can drop in the chat. I don't know if it's like a chat here where I can put the information for the webinar, but in the petition, but definitely, you know, we need your support here, and change is gonna come. Change is gonna come. Just remember that, you know, it's we don't want it to be, another person having to endure this. We don't want it to be your loved one. We don't, I don't want it to be, another one of my loved ones. We just don't want those things. But I guarantee you that if it is, and you find yourself in this situation, reach out. I'm here in Texas, but I am an activist. I'm an activist and I go where I'm needed. So that is my contribution back to society. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you again real, real soon. Thanks.